Good morning, good afternoon for those based in Kenya, South Africa, Paris. Welcome and thank you all for joining us today in what hopes to be a lively discussion. We're thrilled to really kick us off into our third learning exchange, which is really focused on embedding fintech in entrepreneurship, entrepreneur support. My name is 𝗕𝗵𝘁'𝘀, as I mentioned, and I'm joined by my colleague 𝗕𝗵𝘁. Both of us will be moderating today's session. We also have our graphic illustrator who will be illustrating key points of the discussion. So her role is really to kind of find what the calls to actions are and bring those to life. It's an interactive session, so we encourage everyone to contribute, whether it be sharing an experience, asking questions, rebutting maybe something that doesn't work in your context, or reflecting on what resonates specifically in the work that you're doing. Today's session is part of the broader learning exchange series under the IYBA-SEED initiative. Like I mentioned, it's our third one. We also host webinars and different types of formats over the course of this year. So feel free to stay close in touch and watch out for those. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Caroline, who is, like she mentioned, the knowledge sharing specialist at 𝗪𝗺𝘗 to officially open today's session and share more about the IYBA-SEED initiative.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I will try to be short, but I just wanted to welcome you on behalf of 𝗪𝗺𝘗 and more generally on behalf of the IYBA-SEED program, along with my colleagues. Thank you for joining this peer exchange. It's kind of a new format that we are experimenting here on the program. But yeah, I hope it will help us to have a fruitful and open discussion on partnerships between ESOs and fintech companies. Maybe just before digging into that, I just wanted to say a few words about the IYBA-SEED program, just in case you are not that familiar with it. So just to say that it's a program which is funded by the European Union, but also by the French, German, and Slovak governments. It's implemented by 5 member states agencies: 𝗪𝗺𝘁'𝘀, 𝗕𝗚𝗪𝗏 from Belgium, GIZ from Germany, SIDC from Slovakia, and SNV from the Netherlands. And it's a program that was launched as part of the European IYBA initiative, which aims to support startups and young entrepreneurs in Africa. We are working at strengthening entrepreneurial ecosystems, particularly in 5 countries. So indeed, Kenya and South Africa, but also Benin, Senegal, and Togo. And each time with dedicated teams and dedicated action plans. As 𝗕𝗵𝘁 said, we propose also international activities to promote knowledge sharing at international level. So to that end, we indeed have a lot of knowledge sessions, exchanges planned, actually, whether it's webinars, online training, peer exchanges. And this peer exchange, it's part of our series on innovation and technology, but as 𝗕𝗵𝘁 said, we will also address throughout the project new topics and new formats. And just one more thing I wanted to add is that as we really try to foster, to facilitate access to information on the development of entrepreneurial ecosystems, each time after each knowledge sharing session, we try to have a recap and to make also sure that other resources are available on our knowledge platform, which is IYBA-SEED.eu, and I think 𝗕𝗵𝘁 will put the URL also in the chat if you want to know more about it. So yeah, that being said, I leave the floor to 𝗕𝗵𝘁, to the speakers, and of course to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I will, yes, for sure share the email right in the chat right now. go ahead and get started. So today's peer exchange, like I mentioned, is really meant to be practical space, a chance for all of us to share experiences, ask questions, and really learn from one another. Across Africa, we're really seeing fintech and digital platforms and solutions really reshape how small businesses operate, from payment tools to bookkeeping apps to mobile credit platforms. These products are everywhere. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, entrepreneur support organizations, sometimes the adoption is a lot less consistent. And that's the puzzle we want to really dig into today. If these tools are already out there and so many businesses are using them, why aren't ESOs weaving them more directly into their programs? Or are they doing so by building them in-house and not partnering externally? What hesitations are at play? What opportunities might be missing, or what are they trying to really prevent? And so these are the types of questions we really want to try to get into over the next 60 minutes that we have together, but not just to highlight challenges, really to surface what practical insights and real world examples we can think about, where collaboration has worked and when was it possible, what holds back kind of stronger partnerships. What does this win-win approach really look like for both fintech startups, but also for ESOs? The idea is that in this conversation, we make contacts, we make networks, but we also come out with, action items or insights of what that could look like. What are maybe the supports that ESOs need, which we'll talk about further in the breakout room discussion. So this is a peer exchange. It's not a webinar. It's not a meeting. So we really invite you to be authentic, share not only what has worked, but also what has been really difficult. Share maybe that, we actually don't know what that looks like. What does that look like for contracting? What does it look like for engagement? These are really real world issues. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to our first speaker, Celestine Otieno. Celestine is the head of partnerships at SOMO Africa, where she develops impactful collaborations to empower entrepreneurs and marginalized communities. She specializes in building strategic alliances, mobilizing resources, and designing innovative, growth-oriented programs. With a strong foundation in business strategy, leadership, and ecosystem development, Celestine thrives on creating engaging learning experiences and impactful training programs, leveraging technology and data-driven insights. Celestine works to ensure that every partnership translates into real, measurable change. Without further ado, Celestine, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much for the powerful introduction. I feel, hey. Thank you so much. So as we start off, allow me to give a bit of a background of SOMO. So SOMO equips undeserved entrepreneurs to build sustainable, resilient businesses through data-driven, inclusive financing and secular shared production hubs, which we have, so far we have two, one in Nairobi, Kenya, and the other one we're launching soon in Arusha, Tanzania. And we're also supporting the entrepreneurs through powered by AI. These are our digital tools that are now powered by AI to support and ensure that the entrepreneurs are able to meet their goals and run sustainable businesses. Yes, as we are starting off to today's session, I want to say that for us internally as SOMO, we thrive more in terms of supporting ESOs and also supporting entrepreneurs through capacity building, and we're into this digital world where we have created internal digital tools that are now merged with AI to support and ensure that entrepreneurs are now able to do business in a way that it is more relatable, and they're also able to adapt to new ways of doing businesses and also new ways of incorporating different tools to support and just make their work easier. I don't know if I need to proceed from there, Leva.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So as we're doing this, SOMO is not just doing this alone. We are working with other ecosystem builders. And for this, allow me to say that first, let me go through our impact numbers so that you're able to see how these digital tools have been able to transform different businesses that we work with. So since 2016 up to date, we have DigiSomo, that is a learning platform space that supports entrepreneurs to build their basic knowledge on how to do their businesses. So through that, we have been able to train 16,653 businesses so far. And through SOMO Academy, where now we get into practical skills that is blended with the digital tools powered by AI, we have been able to graduate 4,000 businesses And out of that, when you're talking about tools for investments, we have 𝗕𝗁𝗀, an online record keeping tool that supports entrepreneurs to be able to keep track of their businesses, do financial validation, and also make informed decisions. They're able to know the months which their businesses are not really performing well, and even make a decision on having a different line of business that is now going to implement these are the business A. When the business A is a bit down, there is a business B that is now at the peak season. So they're able to blend those two, and through this 𝗕𝗁𝗀. So with that, we're also using the 𝗕𝗁𝗀 to be able to support different entrepreneurs and also different organizations, which I'll be speaking about shortly, and to access different financing. So when they're accessing different financing, it means they know how their cash flows is running. If they need to even access the non-commercial loan investments that are available, they can even do it with or without SOMO, because they're building good relationships, not only because of SOMO, but outside SOMO for their own businesses and to the networks they're creating along that. And this is something that it is proven, and the feedback so far, even the testimonies, are really good in terms of they're now able to have their bank statement, their cash flows to access different financing from different people that they're working with, or people that they're relating with. As we move in terms of the ESOs that we have worked with, this actually has been made possible because we have different partners that we're working with, and now we're at a stage where we're doing commercialization of the digital tools. And with that, so far we are in good collaborations with 𝗕𝗁𝗁𝗀, that 𝗕𝗁𝗁𝗀 are using our digital tools right now. And with that, we have even added a different language to our digital tools, Somali, because they're very heavy in Somali. So we have added a different language to our digital tools that is now speak the language the locals are speaking, and it's able to talk and touch the areas where the entrepreneurs are able to relate better and own it as their own. When you're looking at crossing over to the border, we have coded using our platforms as well. We also have Solar Sisters in Arusha, Tanzania, still using our digital tools. And that's why we keep on upgrading and opening our doors for more ESOs to come on board, so that they're also able to make their work easier, and also make the entrepreneurs they're working with be able to digitize their businesses and move forward with the current trends that we are having within the space where we are right now. Yeah, I'll say one of the things that made SOMO to start having the digital solutions, it's because of the challenges we were facing, where most fintech tools in the market were not relatable. They were designed for the people who are ready for commercializations, for the people who are ready to be banked on. But if you look at the areas where majority of the ESOs are operating from, these are undeserved communities. And these undeserved communities, the literacy level is very low. Even adoption to these digital tools, they don't even know what that is. So if the ones that were existing were built for bankable, ready for commercialized, that was not really speaking the language of the entrepreneurs that we wanted to impact and that we are still impacting. So that is one that made us to be able to come up with these digital tools that speaks the language of an entrepreneur, and keep on improving as the days goes by, and including introducing the AI solutions to the digital tools that we have right now. And with that said, into my last point, when we're talking about collaborations and maybe the barriers that so far have been there, you realize that we have a lot of misalignments, and also the target users. So sometimes, as we started off as SOMO, we were targeting only the entrepreneurs that we work with, because it was a challenge we were facing internally. But now we realized other ESOs are also facing the same kind of a challenge. So how do we align, and how do we work together to ensure that how you see the businesses you're working with, the ideas, where they want to be, the support, they're able to get it. So we are in that space where we are doing alignments with different partners, and also ensuring that the cost is actually down to support the ESOs and to support the businesses that the ESOs are working with. Doing financial literacy to ensure that each and every entrepreneur, accompanied with a business coach, they're able to tackle the challenges, they're able to do the follow-ups, and they're able to be at par with what is happening around them and make informed decisions, as well as knowing where their businesses are going and the business growth that they want to experience. With that said, I'd love to maybe pause there and see if there's anyone with any question to me before now I can even open it up to 𝗕𝗁𝗀𝗀 team. And Leva, maybe you can help me check if you have questions on the comment, on the chat box, maybe.
𝗕𝗵𝘁 has her hand up. So 𝗕𝗵𝘁, go ahead with your question.
Hi, Celestine. Thanks for that sort of overview of how you're engaging with startups as well as other ESOs. It'd be great to just maybe deep dive into what the nature of engagement with ESOs, with other ESOs has been. In particular, how have you been identifying them? What have been sort of the ways in which you've been able to collaborate? And what have been some of the ways to strengthen partnerships as well? Because you're also working with the same, you're working for the same goal, you might be competitors. So how has that worked out for Sumo?
Thank you very much. So yes, and I'll love to say that as you're starting off, you might think that you guys are really competing, but in reality, you're not. Because if you look at the different strengths that we do have, SolarStisa have a different strength, and in terms of the solar energy supporting people within that green space. And Somo has their strength in terms of building these digital tools and also entrepreneurship. So we are able to blend our strengths together and kill the mentality of your competitors, rather welcoming the mentality and mindset of we are collaborators and we are here for one mission of elevating the entrepreneurs for marginalized communities. So that has really been very much impactful in how we are working with the different partners. And when we're doing this, we look at the cost per entrepreneur. And when you're looking at the cost per entrepreneurs, because we have to do onboarding, we have to do a TOT for the team members who are going to support entrepreneurs on this. So we're looking at the logistical aspect of this and ensuring that whatever we are giving out is able to support and goes a long way to create a long-lasting impact. Not only for Somo, because now this is a shared impact. It's Somo, Solar Sisters, Somo in Komoko. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you have any other question or
Question in the chat. It says, thank you, Celestine. You mentioned 4,000 businesses being supported over how many years? And if you have this information, how many of these enterprises are still active? Finally, can you give us an example of an enterprise that you have supported and you are really proud of their progress and growth?
Thank you very much. So yes, we've been in operation since 2016 up to date. And so this has been a journey of building and testing and ensuring that the impact report that we're reporting is an impact report that can be traced back and can be validated. And when we're talking about different businesses, if you look at our website, you'll be able to see, when you click Discover Entrepreneurs, you'll be able to see amazing profiles of the entrepreneurs that we're working with and the businesses are still active. So I can say 95% of these businesses are still active up to date. And they're still doing their reporting, they're still engaging with the activities that we're having within the Somo's portfolio. Yeah, I don't know if I'm missing the other question. I think I'm missing the other question. Can you repeat it, please?
Of course. The second is
one example that you're most proud of, right? That's something that made you feel really proud and keeps you doing what you do every day.
We have so many. We have so many. We do have so many that I can speak about. So I can talk about one business in Kisumu. So not even one. We have quite a number. So just allow me to mention. So we have Modesh Bakers. We have Belano Enterprises. We have in Nairobi, we have Znolani. We also have Momix. We have Dorels. In Mombasa, we have Rosalie, who also runs a business there. She's into recycling the tires to make sandals. We have quite a number of businesses that we're actually proud of per region. When you're talking about Arusha, Tanzania, I can talk about Shedrack, I can talk about, forgetting the name, but there are quite a number of businesses that I'm actually proud of and keep us going. Because if you look at the number of employments they're creating, if you look at the adoption in terms of the digital tools, and even if you look at how they're able to create a different relationship between them and the other financing institutions, other ESOs around, you realize that that is the impact that we want. You are not locking yourself in, but you are going to fly as a free bird and get more opportunities, because our aim is to elevate and then you move from this point to the next level. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think one thing
You're
interesting that you mentioned, and it's more of a comment than a question, is is this point around that these fintech solutions exist, but they actually don't meet the needs of where your entrepreneurs are at, whether they be, smaller, younger businesses, seed businesses. And so while all these products exist, they're either for these bigger organizations or entrepreneurs, or more formal organizations who have, access to all the documents, the capitals. And so it's interesting that that's one of the barriers, and therefore you decided to go in-house and create your own tools that met the needs of the organization or the entrepreneurs that you support. And I think that's probably why a lot of ESOs might not be going to external fintech solutions, because they really don't meet, and maybe they aren't agile to adapt, potentially. I don't know. This is kind of what we're discussing, and therefore decide to create things in-house. So thanks for sharing that. I don't know if anybody else has any questions for Celestine before we move on. And if you do, feel free to throw it in the chat box, and we can also come back to it when we go into our actual discussion. So thank you so much, Celestine. And we'll move now on to I'm really honored that we also have our next speaker here today, which is 𝗪𝗵𝘁'𝗀𝗪, who, as she introduced, is the CEO at 𝗪𝗵𝘁, an enterprise with a mission to develop a diverse and inclusive STEM ecosystem through education and technology, working from attraction to ownership and investment for girls and women all along the value chain. As CEO, 𝗪𝗵𝘁'𝗀𝗪 leads on strategy and implementation of development for female founders for long-term and embedded growth. At the heart of this, she has shaped the 𝗪𝗵𝘁 offerings at the intersection of gender, technology, sustainability, and financing that works closely with stakeholders in public and private institutions to drive DEI goals that will shape the future of companies with meaning. So thank you so much, 𝗪𝗵𝘁'𝗀𝗪, for being here. The floor is all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I will declare, and as Nicholas knows very well, I'm going to keep a very close eye on time because I can barely say hello in under 10 minutes. So I think in the interest of having a conversation, I've just got a couple of thoughts that I want to share with you around who we are, what we do, and thank you very much for that introduction. I think very well positioned. But certainly, and then spend the majority of the time talking about, and I guess dropping some thoughts around the conversations we want to have going forward. But yes, I have the privilege of leading an organization really looking at the value chain and the ecosystem as a whole around how we drive innovation and transformation overall for female founders in STEM. Next slide, please. And really what that looks like for us is we focus on capacity building for talent and skills to jobs. We focus on entrepreneurship development, and so very firmly position ourselves as an ESO, looking at incubation, acceleration, and road to investment programs. We have the privilege of having the incredible innovation hubs that we do that are completely digitized with access to and ability to democratize access to technology for entrepreneurs and members of our communities. And then the fourth thing that we do is really thinking about changing and shifting the needle around capital solutions, and understanding around challenges with accessing capital for entrepreneurs. And for us, that definitely is around educating both funders and founders around capital and capital needs, building a financier network and communities, and then making sure that the investments absolutely do happen. That is underpinned by our foundation, which really thinks about the outreach work through our 1 Million Girls in STEM program, and how is it that we bring more pipeline in terms of girls and incredibly talented women into these spaces, as well as create ambassadors to make sure that the reach is spread wide and far. Next slide, please. Similarly to the previous speaker, I'm delighted to talk about our impact. These numbers have kind of ticked up a little bit more, but I think, really thinking about local relevance and global impact. We've worked with over 150, closer to 250,000 girls and women now around awareness and participation in STEM economies. We've worked with young entrepreneurs in terms of venture labs, and then have impacted a number of female founders in really walking through their journey with the onward benefits of impact in capital raises and jobs created. And I think we're very pleased that through our programs, we work on an average of 5 jobs created per SMME, which is the area we focus on. And for us, that is really entrepreneurs taking up the charge around their personal growth and development and the economic catalyst role that they want to play. Next slide, please. And I think, being an ESO and positioning ourselves is really recognizing how much the world has changed, not only in the development space, but also in terms of access for our entrepreneurs and the business imperative for those entrepreneurs that we support. And so for us, if you look at the world of how to embed fintech, I think it's a couple of things. The one is really keeping close to what are the mega trends that are out there. I'm so sorry, Liva, next slide, please. And I think we kind of know what those big players are, thinking about agentic AI and really a more personalized experience through technology for our founders. And then the next kind of space is around thinking about embedded finance and building out open ecosystems, which founders typically have been quite anxious about getting involved with. And then there's a lot to be said around all of these mega trends, but I'm going to skip to the last one, which is really always making sure for entrepreneurs that they have an understanding of regulatory obligations and safety, cybersecurity around running their businesses and safeguarding their businesses in a digitally enabled world. So we position ourselves and have really thought about responses and embedment in these worlds quite deliberately. And so from an ESO perspective, where we're kind of playing the role, next slide, please, is a couple of things. So I think the first is, how is it that we embed fintech and AI into our accelerator programs? And what I really want to highlight there is really bringing that through in terms of content and different tools that we bring to them in the space of like very real things that are being used is 2 things. So one, legal and regulatory access for our founders through digital tools. We've partnered with actually a founder who has a fintech business and is able to provide those services to founders on our programs. And then in the cybersecurity space, we've built a vulnerability index that really talks to founders where they're at, understands the needs of entrepreneurs, and all of our programs now have a cybersecurity component to it and give the opportunity to the founders to go through their vulnerability index and understand where do their vulnerabilities lie. And I think what that allows us to do is answer some of those questions around why aren't they accessing more fintech solutions that have been in traditional finance spaces, and how do they think about embedding those in their businesses better, knowing how to safeguard themselves better. For us, I think we play a vital part in unlocking some of the pain points that are definitely there for founders around accounting systems and the basics around understanding a snapshot of my business at a point in time and how that ties into my growth ambitions, which we continue to work on. Our absolute current area of focus is around demand-driven finance, and I'll talk a little bit more about that because I'd like to show you our newest tool. And I think certainly in answer to your question and just some of the questions that came up previously, it is around recognizing that some of the challenges with fintech at the moment and embedding them into an organization like an ESO is relatability. And this ability to kind of understand that early stage founders and entrepreneurs need that relatability and support in not only understanding the answers and the outputs of what they need to do and where they need to access finance, but also in how to ask the right questions. And so do they have the right data rooms collected? Are they able to understand when someone's talking about market validation, what does that actually mean? And so I think those are those are contributors to why we've made the decision to build these types of tools in-house. And then I think it's the point around when it comes to personalization, we really know the entrepreneurs best, right through the programs, from application through to their participation in the program. All of those are becoming data collection points. And so if you think of ourselves, we're already such a point of data collation or data storage, right? And so how do we use that data with them to say, well, actually, you don't have to create some of these things from scratch. You've already worked on this through the program. We've collected that data for you. We've helped you build your data room in a sense. How do we walk that journey to take it forward with you? So I think partnering that ability and access to data that we already have on behalf of the founders and being able to leverage agentic AI and building our own tools really talks to that relatability and makes real sense for the founders that we are looking to support. And so very, very much said in a very short space of time. But the last thing I'd like to do is we're really thrilled. Our most recent tool, we've already used one tool around investment readiness, but the newer tool is almost taking it a little bit earlier into the process to say to founders, how ready are you in terms of thinking about your preparation for investment readiness? And I've shared a link. Please bear with me for a few minutes to talk you through the tool. We will need to input some data, 𝗕𝗵𝘁. So if you don't mind giving me just a few extra minutes to go through the tool. This is really positioned as our finance readiness scorecard. Nicholas, this is the first time you're seeing this, so my apologies, but also hoping that you're excited. We are super excited. It really talks to the founder around how you can start understanding your funding readiness a little bit more. And 𝗕𝗵𝘁, if you can, I don't know if it's going to allow me to click, if you can just click on start your assessment. So what the tool does is it already starts right from the beginning with very basic questions to help channel the type of funding that would be available to the founder. In our world, gender is important, but it's also a data point around what type of funding are you able to pursue. So I always tick female, but 𝗕𝗵𝘁, you can choose whatever you'd like for the purposes of the exercise. It then goes into the business dynamics and starts helping them. And this is where it's about, through the program, we've helped work with them around how do you work, and again, how do you start understanding which stage your business is at based on some of these categories. That language is not very familiar to entrepreneurs. So they've already gone through this development and are able to now answer the question. So I think if we can go for early revenue, 𝗕𝗵𝘁, that would be amazing. But you can certainly choose anything there. I think if you just click, there we go, thank you. We then have a geographic pre-population at the moment, which we will continue to advance just given the markets we operate in most commonly. Let's choose South Africa because that's where I'm at today, just for the purposes of illustration. And then what we ask is what are the sales channels? How does your business actually generate revenue? We can go for product sales for this one, but sorry, I'm whipping through it, but happy to share and talk in more detail to anyone who would find value out of looking at this in a little more detail. We can choose your choice, 𝗕𝗵𝘁, around the sector. We would choose, yeah, go for it. Fintech is I was going to say, sounds very relevant for today. But it has a number of options, and we've gotten some feedback already around some changes that the founders have asked for in this space. Thanks. And then if you just scroll up again, it asks you for a free format around USD. We've been challenged around why do we ask for revenue in USD, but it again is around consistency and helping entrepreneurs understand a common language. 20,000 USD sounds like a good number. Thank you, 𝗕𝗵𝘁. And then the makeup and team composition from a leadership perspective is something that founders don't often understand, and they don't understand why it's so critical in the funding decision-making process. They often don't get that feedback. So we get them to start thinking about it, and you'll see why in the results shortly. So we can choose a female-led team. for the purposes of this exercise. We ask about previous raises just so we understand where they're at. And I think in our context, we often don't have the luxury in Southern Africa around friends and family raises because it's first time, we don't have generational wealth. So a lot of them would have been bootstrapping to date or relying on grant funding, depending on where they're at in the value chain. But we can choose microfinance today because it looks like a good middle ground as well. And every time I use the tool, I use a completely different set of criteria. We always ask for challenges because through the tool, what we're additionally doing is building more and more data around what are some of the realities that still exist for founders. And again, I'll choose collateral requirements because that definitely is very real for female founders on the continent. And then an idea of what it is that you're looking to raise. And I think I'll go for 25 to 100K. So kind of a small one. Now, typically, and then market validation is just, you know, how did you go back to the market? We can choose paying or pilot, but I think paying customers is a good one, given the rest of the data we've chosen. And then support systems that entrepreneurs have access to and are utilizing is quite important to us from a data gathering perspective. And so the last question there, we could choose women entrepreneur networks as an option. And then we ask them to free form their business goals. For the purpose of this, let's keep it quick, increase revenue by 30%. And all of these things are supporting the tool because of our particular partnership and the work we are doing at the moment. Climate capital is becoming really, really important. So there's always a question for us around sustainability and the metrics around that. So we can look at green technology, please, for this one, 𝗕𝗵𝘁. And then that basically takes them through the process. Now, I think the magic is in what you're able to see at the end. So please give me a moment. But what it basically then gives the entrepreneur the ability to do is to rank, give a recommendation for what type of financing you should be pursuing. And I think our learning certainly has been that founders feel that it's either grant or venture capital and haven't understood all the developments from one to the next. And there's so much value in understanding all the different instruments that sit in that world that could be of access to you based on where you are and what your business looks like. And if you're able to scroll down very quickly for me, please. So it gives a sense of the type of financing. It gives you a sense of your strengths and your gaps currently. It then gives you direction for as an entrepreneur around your action plan and what your priorities should be, because as entrepreneurs, I think they often feel that we're telling them to do everything right now. So it helps prioritize what you should be doing in the upcoming months. You can scroll down further, please. And then even further, please. So it carries on with your key goals. It then says to you what are resources in your markets that you could tap into, and what are some of the things that the data is picking up around what the landscape looks like in your region or your environment, as well as some successes so that you know that you're not alone. It then goes into immediate next steps. Sorry, 𝗕𝗵𝘁, I feel so bad. And then you're able to download the report so that you can track. If you do some of the work and you work on the priorities and the action plans, if you're able to change some of those, change your inputs, what does it start telling you as you walk the journey? So the idea and how we've shared this with founders in the last 2 weeks is, what is this? How does this support you on your journey over time? And so with that, I'm going to take the deepest breath ever and apologize for going slightly over time. But thank you so much for having me. And I hope this was of value for some realistic insights around what we're doing. Thanks. Back to you.
Thanks, Anjani. That was super interesting. I'm going to open up to questions from our team here. I'll start us off. So it was interesting. You mentioned that you have gone to external partners to build partnerships around some fintech solutions, but you've also created things in-house. What has kind of been that decision when you go external versus internal? I know you mentioned relatability. So of course, if there's an external partner that has a product that could be used for the ESO, but are there any other things that you consider when you are looking for a product externally to support versus when you create something internal?
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's the two sides. So the one, as you mentioned earlier, is around flexibility. Some of the more established tools, what are they able to give, customize and change to make sense for the entrepreneurs? But the flip side of it is, I think, where we do need to really leverage off the organizations and the fintech solutions that already exist is the access they have to, for example, gateways and existing infrastructure, but also the tried and tested. So where we find operational processes that need support or business services that need support, that's typically not where we would develop. We would say that, you know, there's already the best of the best doing that, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And so I think that's where we're starting to categorize it, is the business services that our entrepreneurs need are well provided for. It's just around some customization with external parties. Whereas when it's kind of supporting our entrepreneurs on their entrepreneurial journey, particularly around that readiness for financing piece, that's where we find, from a data and a relatability perspective, where we would make the bold decision.
Michael, go for it. Thank you, Anjani.
Well, Janet, thank you so much. I'm really so much impressed with the document, the product you have just shared, and it has really struck me because we are working with young women who are suffering through a lot of historical challenges, and I think this is a document that can really help in preparation and making both. Like, for example, I speak from my organization, Women Business Hub. To cut the story short, how can, for example, Women Business Hub benefit from that? Is it a product that you are selling, and how much, and how can it help? Because it can bring a clear pathway of preparation and training and providing even an innovative or a young woman who wants to venture into business to understand themselves and also help any partner. What are we supposed to do?
Okay, thanks, Michael, for that question. And I think that's why I was so delighted to be able to talk today, and why Nicholas is laughing at me, because every time we meet, we show him a new tool. But the idea of these tools is how do we exponentialize impact for all of us? I think the days of gatekeeping are over. We all know what our individual differentiators are, and we'll continue to have impact. So this product is very much in test phase. We have tested it, and we want to make sure that it works across markets. We've tested it with a number of founders in our immediate community. But the idea then is to formally productize it. So yes, it is a product, and make sure that, because the other benefit and what we don't see is it's not only looking at the input that the founder puts in, but it's also leveraging AI capabilities to scan data that it finds, and that's why it's able to do those recommendations. And so we've got a little bit more testing to do, Michael, but would love to have a follow-up call with you around testing for us, definitely in a different market. And I think that's part of the IYBA initiative, is how do we enable each other through tools and networks, because we've got to jointly be sitting on this call saying, actually, we don't have an access to funding challenge for female entrepreneurs in the next couple of years. So Michael, I think let's have a conversation around that and see how we share and test together, and then certainly bring it to the market more broadly. And I see Nicholas is going to share some sentiments.
Yes, I will. And I'm looking at Caroline, and Caroline, this is our product now, right? So Michael, you should ask Caroline.
And both of them are seeing it for the first time. So there you go. Hope you're happy.
Speaking of intellectual property, gone.
Kathleen, I would love to get your email so that we can have a serious discussion about that. I love that product. It is something that we have been praying for, of how to harmonize how we are engaging with young women in the rural setup and also peri-urban areas. And I just love everything I've just seen. It is just like the exact replica of what we have been looking for. So just drop for me your email, then I will follow up from there.
I'll do that. And I think that, and sorry to speak on your behalf, but for all of our partners and funders, that is the purpose of this, and certainly why we're on board is, this is what we want to do, right? And I think if we have some success stories there, that would be amazing. So I've popped my email in the chat, and certainly let's make some time to meet.
This is beautiful. Thank you so much for both of you for sharing. I'm going to ask another question until others maybe feel comfortable, and then we can start talking about the wider questions that we have. So you mentioned you're now testing these and you're piloting this fintech solution. I would love to know, have there been any kind of challenges on onboarding, or thinking about at least how you're going to actually then scale this tool for maybe smaller organizations or smaller founders or entrepreneurs, and what that would look like? I think that's also another maybe challenge ESOs face, is like, I mean, you have a range of entrepreneurs you're trying to organize. Not each kind of solution would work maybe. How would that then look like? Is one question I have.
Yeah, no, I think it's such an important question, because I think there's a couple of things. So given our context, and I think probably why Michael's going, this is so exciting, is because access is, access has a different meaning in our context, meaning that, if you don't have infrastructure that can support these, you can have the best tools in the world, but actually, if you don't have the infrastructure to even get on the tool, that's a significant challenge. And so when we think about impact and reaching particularly smaller entrepreneurs, access is a challenge, and we have to think about that. And I guess related to that, and one of the things we found is language, not in terms of spoken language, but in terms of the mismatch between language that's used as ecosystem enablers and in the ecosystem. And I give the example of like business stages, MVP, pre-post revenue, all of that, versus the day-to-day language that businesses that are just trying to get through the day and generate revenue, so there's a consistency around language to make sure, and that's why I said you've got to use the tool in combination with the workshopping around what does it mean when they're asking market validation, because otherwise you're not going to get the right answers. Absolutely, there's a challenge then around trust. I think, there's so much talk around data, sharing your data. So we've got to build and take people on that trust journey. And that's a little bit at a time, getting them to play with the tool, getting them to understand, getting them to protect themselves around what type of data they share. And then a potential challenge that we're starting to think about that hasn't hit us yet, but we are starting to see the signs of, is potential tool fatigue. Because I think all of these things, particularly as ESOs start building and partnering and collaborating, we've got to be careful that entrepreneurs don't end up with, all of these tools and they just go, oh my gosh, now I've got, so many amazing tools, but I actually don't use any of them because I just can't get to it. So those are some of the things I think in terms of challenges that we're thinking about.
Excellent. Thank you. That was beautiful. Thanks so much. Thank you, everyone. I think, these are, as was mentioned earlier, these are the purposes of the learning exchanges, is really to connect with one another, to learn from how different contexts are working, what is applicable in one area, can it be replicated, are there learnings? And I'm hoping that's kind of what we got out today, is really sharing reflections, also sharing struggles and challenges, and maybe just, sharing that, yeah, we're also struggling with those things in our context and we haven't figured it out yet. But I really want to appreciate you all for joining us today. It's been a rich and engaging conversation on trying to really think through what these partnerships and what these integrations could look like for ESOs. A big thank you to our speakers for such thoughtful insights and really kind of providing those real world examples. And thank you as well to our participants for also sharing your experiences, your reflections, and the energy throughout. This peer exchange is part of this broader series focused on really strengthening ecosystems for entrepreneurs across Benin, Senegal, Togo, Kenya, and South Africa. So we hope today's exchange kind of sparks some ideas, maybe spark some connections. Feel free to throw emails in the chat that you guys can carry forward as you move through your work. We look forward to seeing you at future events, and thank you again, everyone, for your time.